No other footballer does things that I am not capable of doing myself, but I see that I do things that others can't do. There is no player more complete than me.
Well, hello there, FC Dallas curious fan, as our good friend Peter Welton would say. I'm Buzz Carrick. Peter is not here today. I'm on vacation myself, but Peter has to do some work super early in the morning tomorrow, so he was not able to join us today. With me is Dan Crook. Dan, welcome to the podcast. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, thanks. And I'm calling in from right here in DFW, and maybe I'll even catch Peter on the ticket in the morning.
There you go. I myself am calling in from Spokane, Washington, if that tells you anything about how we do media in the modern era. This may be a little bit of a rougher show because we obviously don't have, between Dan and I, we have a lot of media experience, but we don't have Peter's audio radio expertise. He usually cuts these shows together, but we're going to do our best to try and hold the show together. This will probably mostly be a conversation between Dan and I about some of the various things we're going to talk about. And let's start, Dan, with the DC United game, which was the last game for our lovely FC Dallas compadres. And, okay, FC Dallas won 2-0. Interesting game. One, I thought Dallas was clearly the better team and had control of that game. I think the statistics of 23 shots to 7 is pretty indicative. Lucci ball is on display, 57% passing to 42. 87% accuracy. That's great. Little passes were down a little bit, only 479 for Dallas. They usually are above 500 and closer to 6. But you got to like 22 crosses. You got to like 23 shots. 9 on target isn't bad. The hot topics of the day, Dan, were the 2 red cards, which we both had to go back and look at on video later. In the run of play, I thought Wayne Rooney kicked out at the Dallas player, who's all of a sudden, I can't remember who it is because it's been a week. And
that would be Michael Barrios.
Michael Barrios, yes. I thought that he kicked out at him, Wayne did, and so I was like, okay, that could be a red card, and they reviewed it, and upon review, perhaps it's not a red card. And then the second red card on Acosta, where he steps on Paxton Pomacco, looked pretty clearly obvious. What did you see from your point of view on those, Dan?
I was actually in the beer garden doing the whole fan thing, so I didn't actually see the Rooney foul. I was asking people around what happened, and a couple of people said, from what I saw, I didn't see anything that was red card worthy, and sure enough, the referee goes back to VAR, and although the foot was high, it was the laces side that catches Barrios' leg. It's an intentional trip. It wasn't necessarily reckless endangerment. The Luciano Acosta one was kind of interesting because I don't know if you ever keep up. Well, I mean, obviously not while you're on Walkabout 2019, but I don't know if you ever keep up with the MLS videos that Andrew Wiebe and Bobby Warshaw do, the red card reviews. But
sure.
Bobby Warshaw was actually trying to defend Luciano Acosta and say, how can he prevent stepping on Paxton Pomacco? And it's like he took 3 steps, then kind of took a half step onto Paxton's chest. It's like I'm not sure how you can really defend that. It was pretty bad. And again, I thought the review and the reversal of the decision was the exact right call.
Yeah, one thing we say about professional soccer players, probably pro athletes in general, but specifically soccer players, is they have phenomenal body control.
Yeah,
they have wonderful ability to control exactly where they're stepping, exactly where they're kicking. And if you want to look at Wayne Rooney as an example, Michael Barrios ran around Wayne like he was standing still, and so Wayne kicked him.
And if he wanted to, he could have started him in the back of the leg, and he didn't.
Yeah.
His control was to flick the knee with the leg, with toe and do it in a way that's not a red card.
Yeah, exactly. And we often talk about this with players, like when they're falling down and they're like, oh, the guy got his arm caught between. Yeah, that dude grabbed his arm on purpose. When they're falling down or whatever they're doing, it's the reason why a lot of people complain about diving in soccer. These guys have so much athletic ability, so much body control, such balance that when they get fouled, they don't fall over like you and I do. If they want the foul, they have to choose to fall over. So it looks a lot like a dive, even when they were fouled. Of course, they dive too. That's different. But, the body control is amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, even away from the professional level, I've played against guys and I've been pulling the shirt right off their shoulder and I remember playing a game, guy goes down, I managed to jump over and miss him. And, he gets a free kick. I'm like, sorry, mate. I know I was pulling your shirt, but I wanted to get that ball. He's like, nah, that's cool. I flopped. I was like,
yeah, that happens. Well, overall, an outstanding game by FC Dallas in that game against DC United. Jesus Ferreira played a pretty strong game. Michael Barrios, they had no answer for him. Paxton Pomykal is, again, he could be your man of the match in every single game.
Yeah.
Brandon Cervani was fantastic. My man of the match in that game, Santiago Mosquera, was interesting because he started the game, which was a bit not totally surprising because of Baji's performance the previous game, but Mosquera looked so winded and gassed by halftime. I thought, he'd taken half of the first half off. I thought he's coming off at 60. But then he stayed on the whole game, and I gave him a lot of credit afterwards because of the impactful moments he had and how he chose his moments to do things. Because clearly he's not 90-minute game fit at this point.
No, you said it looked like he'd come off after 60. I think his two best moments were immediately after that hour mark. There was, the run and shot that ended up with Baji tapping it back in, and then it's a couple of minutes later again, cut back around the wing, and with a chance that Barrios should have really put away.
Yeah, Mosquera was terrific, and I think obviously the next real game, which we'll get to in a minute, I would expect to see him again over Baji at this point. The moment of the game for me, let's give a little praise to defense, which I thought collectively was pretty good. Hollingshead, Bress, and Ziegler. Bresson still does a good defensive first job and did a nice job taking Griffin Yao, DC's spectacular U17 out of the game. And overall, a collective good defense. For me, the moment of the game was late on when Paxton Pomykal made that 70-yard run in the 85th minute and almost scored by making a trailing run. That was the most ridiculous run I have seen in a long time. It was such a lovely moment.
And you mentioned Mosquera. That's who played the ball for it.
Yep, yeah. All right, let's move on to the Xolos game. I know I'm butchering that in my Anglo-Sic. Xolos. Former FC Dallas coach Oscar Pereira, Poppy. We all know him and love him coming to town. Fabulous guy. He's doing some great things with that team. Dan, you wrote a big, huge breakdown about that game online, and let me first lead into that by talking about the lineup. Pepe up top. This is obviously a perhaps second choice or even worse choice, including some academy guys lineup that might have made some people mad on the Xolos side. Aranguiz starts on the wing. Atua Hene is recalled, starts on the right wing. Thomas Roberts starts. Cerrillo and Hayes, those are two quality players in there.
Yep.
16-year-old Jonathan Gomez starts at left back out of the U17 team. By the way, a player I assume is going to be signed to a pro contract any minute. Bresson starts. Montgomery starts. Reynolds, who's really come on of late, starts. Sobek, who's the third choice keeper, gets in the goal. So, Dan, break that game down for us.
No goals. That's the headline of it. It was an interesting game. It wasn't. I say it was interesting. It was interesting on some levels. We saw a near first choice Xolos lineup come in, granted in preseason mode, and we saw an FC Dallas second team handle him comfortably. I guess the talking point really is Pablo Aranguiz. Starts on the left wing, trying to recapture that form with Chile in the Toulon tournament. Within 10 minutes, he hasn't committed a foul, but the referee's given him a last warning because he just keeps going and going and going. He kept diving on things that weren't even close to a foul. You get into half-time. Sorry, not half-time. You get into stoppage time just before the break. And there's this little coming together with one of the midfielders. Kind of leans his shoulder in, seems to flick his elbow a little bit. Referee reaches straight for the yellow card. Fourth official gives him a little signal, shows the elbow, and that quickly gets upgraded to a red. It was weird. And he's still on the field arguing that, trying not to leave. We saw a lot of experimentation. We saw Brian Reynolds continue at right back, played a little bit left back, looked really comfortable there. Jonathan Gomez in the little write-up, I said believe the hype. But if Buzz didn't disappoint you projecting Pepe or Cerrillo as MLS players last year, don't be disappointed now.
And I think through the course of the game, we saw basically the entire 11 subbed, including a player at right back is interesting. But also, before we get to that part, the one player that did not get in the game was the Garden Snake, Andresic, which probably says something else. But let's talk about the guys who did play. In particular, I think you mentioned Tuamase came off the bench, and along with Jota. And Jota played center back, and Tuamase played right back.
Yeah, so Callum Montgomery, I think he played the full game. Fantastic defensively, but his passing isn't quite up to Lucci ball.
No.
Starting Bresson next to him, someone whose distribution is really good. And then subbing in Jota, who, honestly, Afasani Jota, I think, is one of the best passers at the club, period. You watch him in the midfield for North Texas, and, the way he spreads the ball around is just... It's done in a calming way, an efficient way. It's what you need. And, it's one of the reasons we say he's going to be a guy that gets to MLS and then gets beyond it.
Yeah.
So that kind of helped. I think that kind of helped to a degree with having those two players next to Montgomery, where there were times he tried to pass out to Gomez and he passed him into trouble, passed him into a lot of pressure, which, for a 15-year-old, passing him into pressure while playing at the back is not ideal. So having someone that you can just go straight to your left and comfortably get that pass into midfield was quite handy. Tuamase was quite interesting. Lucci just explained it, and you've said before you've seen him play right back in practice.
Yes.
Lucci just said we tried him out in a tactical drill yesterday just for numbers, and he did really well. And, they just wanted to see him in a real game against real opposition. That's what it came down to.
Sure. And before we talk about Pablo Aranguiz, the writing on the wall perhaps for Andresic, despite Lucci's comment about what a pro the guy is after the game, if you're not getting into the friendlies even now, the Garden Snake, Andresic, that can't be a good sign for your long-term future at the club, can it?
No, not at all. I mean, when you think, they subbed in Baji, they subbed in Jesus Ferreira. Now, Lucci did say, my substitution pattern changed with the red card, and he didn't name Andresic, but he said, it was backhanded compliments, great professional, showed a lot of respect.
Damning with praise, right? Isn't that what we say?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you wanted to get Andresic some reps, you could have left Ferreira on the bench. You could have left Baji on the bench. But instead, that was the priority, was to get them the minutes. And so the Garden Snake remains.
Which leads us to the next guy that I think we should talk about in all seriousness is Mr. Pablo Aranguiz, who, if not tried to get red carded, perhaps is walking a thin line to begin with. Clearly, things are not going well for him. He was left out of the Portland trip in favor of Thomas Roberts. A guy that is not, again, he's starting at this false wing position, a guy that's just not fitting in with Luchi Gonzalez, not making an impact on this team and getting paid a fair clip, seems to be massively homesick for his home country and perhaps his family, who may or may not be here as much as he would like. Are we destined to see this guy leaving sooner rather than later?
Yeah, I think the writing's on the wall for him. Even in this game, it was kind of weird in this game. It was the best I've seen him play defensively. He had a lot of hustle. It was like he had something to prove, whether that was to Lucci or to Oscar Pereira. But then,
there you go.
Carrying the ball forward, he's lazy. He's giving it away. He's not finding his passes. He's diving. He's complaining at the referees, complaining at the players passing the ball. He's throwing elbows around. It was a petulant display. We have heard from certain people that his family, particularly his kids, are in Chile away from him, and that's an issue.
Yeah.
Which at his age, that's probably a tough experience to go through.
Hey, off-field matters, man. Guys settling and being comfortable and being happy is a big deal.
I mean, there was always the old adage, whenever a player gets married, has a kid, moves in with his girlfriend, he's having a crap season. Imagine leaving your kids in a different continent.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of chatter in Chile about people wanting to bring him back down there, and I think at this point, if someone offers $10, you take it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he finishes the year here. The window's still open in lots of places. I don't know about the Chilean window specifically, but lots of places the window is still open. It'd be interesting to see if something were to happen quickly or whether he would finish out the season, because at this point, he probably is not the greatest influence on the locker room. He certainly on the sideline has terrible body language when he's not subbing in the game. Things are not going well with that young man.
Yeah, I mean, people used to talk about Sad Mauro Diaz, but I mean,
yeah,
I think I'd put Mosquera 50% of the time and Pablo 100% of the time over that.
Yeah. All right, well, let's real quickly lead ahead a little bit before we get to Mr. Reggie Cannon, which I want to talk about next, but let's real quickly look ahead to the Minnesota game this weekend. I don't know of anybody suspended for FC Dallas, but I can't imagine you're going to see many changes from the last game. You saw a pretty comprehensive performance. Gonzalez' net is a no-brainer. Hollingshead, Ziegler, Hedges is obvious. Mm-hmm. I'll get to right back in a second. The Brandon Cervania, Brian Acosta combo looked pretty darn good. Michael Barris and Santiago Mosquera look good. Pomacol is written in pen at this point. Jesus Ferreira is your 9. That leads us to the one big question, does it not, Dan, which is, does Reggie Cannon come back and immediately get back into your starting lineup at right back for this team?
Yeah, so that's a tough choice. You don't change a winning team. You don't change a team that's playing well, but...
That's a good point.
It's Reggie. Reggie's a fantastic player.
Yeah. Yeah, and Reggie's a pure fit as a right back. Bressan is a center back playing as a right back, a defensive first-minded player. You've been missing big time your verticality out of the right back position. The team's been incredibly lopsided. Not that Bressan hasn't tried to get forward in moments, but let's be honest, he's not Reggie, who's going to come back in glorious form and played so well at the Gold Cup that now, of course, there's all these rumors floating around that people are interested in buying him for crazy amounts of money that FC Dallas is more than likely not going to be able to turn down. And when you want to talk about Cannon and his versatility and his potential at a higher level and his potential sale, you have to also understand how these things work. And FC Dallas already has Brian Reynolds, who's coming on as a right back. They've played him against Xolos again. They've played him for North Texas. They've been playing him at both forward wings as well, ready to slot into that position. And then they got a U19 kid who's a pro more than likely over the next year, and Kevin Bonilla as a right back. So and they have Johnny Nelson coming back from injury who can play right back. So there's cover for Cannon, who is as hot as it gets right now in terms of an FC Dallas commodity. Numbers that I saw kicking around, and I don't have any way to verify these numbers at this point. Those numbers to me are those are numbers that FC Dallas is going to jump all over.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking like $5 million plus for a young defender, that's something you don't sniff at.
Yeah, that's more than if I'm not brain farting, that's more than they got for Carlos Grezzo. Is it not?
Yeah, that was reported 4.5. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean that's remarkable, and the new era of developmental club and the new era of selling. That the Hunts are doing here, and Luchi Gonzalez talks about we're a developmental club, and he talks about how the Gold Cup was an opportunity of a lifetime for Reggie. Certainly, that looks to have been the case. It'll be interesting to see if between now and the end of the year, as our good friend Peter said, might we end up with Carlos Grezzo, Reggie Cannon, and God forbid Paxton Pomacol all sold by the end of this season. Oh, please, I hope not Paxton Pomacol.
I mean, it's kind of funny. I accidentally hit play on the very first Third Degrader podcast the other day while trying to listen to last week's with Steve Davis, and I think the cold open was Peter talking about being excited to have a midfield of Brian Acosta, Carlos Grueso, and Pablo Aranguiz.
Yeah, at that point we were assuming that Aranguiz was going to be the 10 for this team, and
at least Acosta worked out.
Yeah, at least Brian Acosta looks legitimate and is happy to be here. Hope he can hold the ball club. Go ahead.
Say just going back to the immediacy of will Cannon start. 2 things I'm thinking probably will. Baldemiro Toledo is the referee, and Brisson likes to foul people.
Yes, he does.
And you really want to put your best foot forward because, I mean, we knew Minnesota had been on this fantastic streak. In 6 games, they've now scored 26 goals.
Wow. Yeah, that's a team like. There's one thing to say be defensive. It's another thing to say you got to make that team sit back too, and that's part of a player like Cannon balancing Hollingshead on both wings. It's going to be important.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to overcompensate for any defensive frailties from Hollingshead in that case.
Yeah.
I mean, both the last 2 away games they've won 3-2. Don't be surprised if it's a 1-goal game one way or the other in this one. They're at home, so that was completely useless. They've actually conceded 1 in each of the last 4 home games and scored 20 in that time.
These things happen. We can make an edit or not. We'll just leave it raw. That happens too. This is the rough version with no Peter.
The rough cut. There you go.
The rough cut, yeah. Well, real quickly, I just wanted to comment on Paxton. If you want to compare the idea of selling Paxton Comical versus the idea of selling Reggie Cannon as a club philosophy, the pipeline is there at right back. We've talked about the people that are coming up through the system, and even there's a young man in the 17 team who's starting to play really well too, whose name is leaking out the bottom of my brain. My apologies to him. But Paxton, at this point, is a unicorn for this club, is he not? There's no Aranguiz can't play that spot. Santi's not shown in there. There's nobody that can play that role as Paxton plays it with that explosiveness into the gaps, those decisive plays in the final third. Without him, they are not anywhere near as good as with him. And Thomas Roberts, who might be the most likely to fill those shoes, is not anywhere near ready to be Paxton Pommelko good. So we all, in terms of competition, are crossing our fingers that they're not selling Paxton anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, you've also got to look at, I've seen a couple of people say $5 million for Reggie. No, that's not enough. We want at least 10. Well, fullback is a cheap position to replace.
Yes.
Any winger can be converted to a fullback, whether it's a good fullback or an okay fullback. Yep. We've had people talk about Ryan Hollingshead for MLS Team of the Year at this point because because he's done a good job at left back. Not spectacular, not defensively great, but going forward. And as you say, fullback, there's a production line. There's a bunch of players waiting for those contracts. A 10, really difficult to produce. The
best one might be David Rodriguez, who's plays with North Texas, but is only 16, 17 years old. That's a long way from Paxton Pommelko.
Yeah, you've got him. You've got. I don't personally like it, but Lucci likes the idea of Jesus at 10. Roberts isn't the explosive player. Roberts is the, I can put a ball on a dime 60 yards away. Yeah. He's that guy you kind of want to pull back and be more of the 8.
That'll be an interesting thing to watch with Roberts over the next season or so, is if they try and convert him to an 8. That might be his better look.
But also, Paxton's the face of this franchise right now. And he potentially could be for the next 10, 12 years.
You got to pay him, though, if you're going to do that.
Well, you've got to pay him, and if you're going to lose him, you've got to get paid.
Yeah.
That's when you're talking, 8 figures.
Yes. Yeah. All right, since we're talking about the academy a little bit, let's break in really quickly to the Developmental Academy Championship. The U19s got to the final today, and they lost 2-1 to NYCFC. NYCFC won their second straight U19 title. That's a really, really good team. North Texas, good grief. NYCFC. They have multiple players who are, already breaking into their first team. Sands, who is a guy that was in the could have been in the U20s and maybe could have been in the national team, came down and played. They have a phenomenal center back I love named Tavon Gray. Super talented squad. But let's be honest, FC Dallas is super talented too. But, sometimes you got to play the games. And in this case, there was an early penalty kick by, I believe, Gibran Rayo that did not go Dallas's way, and that maybe set the tone. And Dallas did not get the result they were looking for in this game, but still a phenomenal season by the 19s, many of whom spent a bunch of time playing with North Texas and were gone for half the season. And this team continued to produce, missing 5 or 6 players at a time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's hard to have that consistency through the season when you've got that occurring, when you've got players going off with national team, going off with North Texas. See, even on day to day, losing players in training to the first team, things like that. Talking about the game itself, Rayo's penalty a little bit weak. He also got fouled. He was the one that won the penalty. I don't think it was a foul personally. And I'm always a great believer in if you got fouled, you don't take it because you're too emotionally charged.
Yep.
He kind of, he tried to strike it to the keeper's right. Keeper had a great reach into the corner, tipped it around him. He won Golden Glove. Let me see what his name is.
New York's keeper.
Yeah. I'm sorry, his name escapes me, but yeah, fantastic player. And then after that really that charged NYCFC to win it for the second consecutive season. Up until Benny Redzik got an injury time consolation goal.
Yep.
It was defending that seemed to let it down. First goal was it was off a cross, half volleyed, and then there was just a bit of a scramble after it took a deflection. Really should have been cleared away. Second goal, Nathan Toledo's trying to shepherd a ball out of play. He's doing it way too far away from the byline, and a little bit of pressure. He goes down, and New York City player just dances off with the ball.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Benny Redzik, he is technically a U17 who plays up with the 19s. He has played up with the 19s all season, mind. He has not been playing with the 17s. He's a guy that I believe is either already in or is close to being in some conversations about being a professional, whether that be a North Texas contract or a homegrown contract. He's a guy who plays on the wing, kind of a slashing kind of player, not a speed player, but more of a creative player that can come inside. A guy with a pro future, needs to mature a little bit on and off the field, but that's, sometimes that happens. So he's a guy that'll be in the conversation over the next couple of years, maybe even before the end of this year for a pro contract. And then the other player, most of the North Texas 19s went back and played. One in particular that I've been raving about and I think is ready for a homegrown contract is Tanner Tessman. And he earned the golden ball for the DA playoffs as the MP. This kid is spectacular, and he has been playing above himself and above this team. And even for North Texas, he's one of their best players, and he's still a cap player.
I know an incredibly versatile player. You can play him right through the middle of the team. Whether I think one of the first times I saw him was he's playing 8. Next time I see him, he's playing 9. I'm just like, he looks like he's played in both positions all his life. How is he that comfortable? And he's a phrase that we use in the UK is built like a brick shit house, and that's exactly what he is.
Yeah, 6'1", the athlete, the body of a football player, not this football, the other football. As you mentioned, we've seen him play. I personally witnessed him play as a 6, an 8, a 10, both wings, and as a 9. And honestly, the way he passes, and given his size, he could be an amazing $1 million center back too. The kid has got so much versatility. The big question about whether he will sign or not a pro contract has to do a little bit with his family background. His father works at Clemson University and runs their coach's football foundation. So he's heavily involved in the NCAAs and with football and with Clemson University. Those are I have not seen a Tanner Tessman college commitment, but obviously there's a big draw there in terms of his family and education and all that kind of stuff. Still, for me, as evaluating this guy purely as a player, I don't know him personally. College is a waste of time for this kid. This kid needs to be playing professional, maybe not even North Texas, maybe straight homegrown deal like Eben Surreal last season. Sign him to a homegrown deal now. Bring him into the start of 2020 as your newest homegrown player. This kid's ready. He is legit. He has the size. He has the ball skill. He has the passing skill. I watched an every touch clip from the championship. He hit a 70-yard crossing pass on the money to Bustamante on the break. It's just ridiculous how talented this kid is.
Definitely. And it's also worth bearing in mind that those games where North Texas played more than their number of NCAA eligible players, he played in all of those games. That could be the plan. He's not going to college, doesn't need the eligibility next year. Pay the man. Especially if it is an FC Dallas homegrown deal. They can pay him a lot more.
Yeah, just in case some listeners don't know what we're talking about, there's a limit of the amount of academy players you can play in a USL 1 game, and the limit is 5. If you bring on a 6th player, that player loses their NCAA protection. So at some point this season, FC Dallas burned the NCAA protection on somebody. We don't know who it is. We haven't been able to figure that out yet. So, and it could be this kid.
It was 2 as well, because there was one game they played with 7.
Yeah, there you go. So, I mean, obviously, the kids that are playing with North Texas from the academy already are clearly the guys that they are going to attempt to sign or already are attempting to sign. So there's no question, and this is probably for another podcast, where a lot of the kids that they signed this first season are on contracts, are on a super short leash. Next year, I wouldn't be surprised if half the current signings are gone. A lot of them are on one-year deals. We already think Jata's moving up. Pepe's already moved up. There's going to be some new guys coming in, new academy guys coming in. You know, this team's going to have some turnover, and they clearly have already blown a couple NCAA eligibilities. We don't know who, but it's going to impact this team, and those kids are going to have to sign pro contracts now.
Definitely, and it'll be interesting to see, who it is, and to do the detective work on those 6-7 players from those couple of games, and figure out what the plan was.
Yeah, and we'll know as soon as some signings will start to happen over the course of this next few months. I think you won't get into the next academy season without some guys being signed, maybe to North Texas, maybe to homegrown deals. There'll be some movement before the end of the year. All right, speaking of homegrowns, let's go on to the homegrown game, where FC Dallas had 4 players named to the homegrown team: Edwin Cerrillo, Brandon Servania, Thomas Roberts, and Brian Reynolds. This is a good honor. Thomas Roberts, good honor for all these guys. No Jesus Ferreira, but he's played a lot of games for FC Dallas, so perhaps understandable. A lot of times the homegrown games tend to be guys that are more on the outside looking into the 18 sometimes, like your Thomas Roberts and your Brian Reynolds, guys who need some minutes. But clearly, with Edwin Cerrillo and Brandon Servania, maybe those are positional needs for that team. And those guys have been a little in and out, depending on who's available and who's starting. And now they maybe one or the other will be starting for FC Dallas. We don't know which one. But, a good chance for those guys to get a little minutes over the All-Star break and have a good honor and have a good time and do some fun stuff on a national stage.
Definitely. This Chivas under 20s again should be an interesting one. I think last time they played Chivas, it was 2-2 or goalless draw. Jesus Ferreira, Paxton Pomacol played in the last few. It'd be interesting to see where they typically play. 45 minutes each. If Cerrillo and Servania are together, or if they switch out for that more defensive midfield role at halftime.
Wouldn't it be fun to see the homegrown games start Cerrillo, Servania, and Roberts in midfield together? Wouldn't that be fun? Get a triangle? Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Give them a whole half together or something. That'd be good.
And it's also it'd be interesting to see where Reynolds comes in. I mean, he's listed as a defender in the team, but is he going to play left? Is he going to play right? We've seen him a little bit in centre for the 19s. He's obviously an adept winger and striker. I mean, he
played a lot of 9 for the academies at some point. The kid's really versatile, so you use him anywhere.
Absolutely. Maybe he'll play at 6.
Yeah, he can.
Every FC Dallas plays a 6.
Plays a 6. That would be something. All right, that's a good honor for those guys in a game that won't mean a lot in terms of actual value, competitive value, but it will be a lot of fun nonetheless. And now I have a lot of incentive to go watch the homegrown game and hopefully enjoy that for those guys. And of course, there's 2 All-Stars for FC Dallas as well, but we knew that before. Paxton Pomacol, who was a commissioner's choice, and Matt Hedges, who was picked by the coach as a defensive player. Matt Hedges, by the way, having a phenomenal season, really has improved his passing this year. The same defender always been, has really stepped up his game in terms of Lucci ball. So credit to him and Paxton as well for their selections.
Absolutely, and I still think it's criminal that Matt Hedges doesn't get a look in with the national team.
Yeah, he got a good run at some point, and I think the book became that he wasn't good enough passer, perhaps out of the back. But the improvements he's made this year are phenomenal. I wouldn't mind seeing him get a January camp. And Paxton, of course, if he's not in the January camp, I mean, he's going to have some commitments over the Olympic team over the last half of this year, but he should be in that January camp as well.
Yeah, I mean, was it Brian McBride said if he had a pick for the US 11 right now, he'd put Paxton Pomacol in it.
I noticed that he started Paxton at left, the left of the 2 8s in that system, and he had Reggie Cannon at left back. I thought, wait, what? But okay.
That's better than a lot of fans saying, "Hey, that Pomykal, he defends really well. Maybe he could be the 6."
No, stop it. Just no.
In FIFA, maybe, but not in real life.
Yeah, not in real life. All right. So the last thing is a hot, controversial topic this week, and Dan, you are far more of an expert at this, being involved with the supporters clubs over the last few years and being intimately involved with reporting on this situation, as you have done for several years for us now. Break down for us the news that came out this week about season tickets, and you talked to Chris to Katz, and you have some good information about what all's going on and what the deal is with all the controversy this week with season tickets and parking.
Yeah, absolutely. Season ticket holders earlier this week started to get emails, basically saying, "Hey, come renew your season tickets. That'd be great." Must apologize. I'm actually trying to load up what I wrote the other day.
I got one.
Okay. Oh, of course you did. So the email was a bit vague because it only had like four real outline points, and it was all things that, mostly things that exist already. It was season ticket holder was free, benefit was free parking. Well, FC Dallas is already parking. Actually, Kevin Lindstrom let me know that technically FC Dallas does not have free parking because $3 of every ticket is technically a parking fee.
What?
Which I did not know. It's
I didn't either.
It's something to do with MLS's cut of the ticket revenue.
Okay.
So I guess that part goes back to the city or the school district and not MLS. But, reality is if you get a free ticket, you're getting free parking. If you get a $10 ticket, you're still not paying extra for parking. So, there was that. There was some club access and match day giveaways, all things that we kind of, we've come to just know and like about FC Dallas games. My reaction was, that sucks. That's not giving a benefit. That's taking a benefit away from the majority to give to the minority. But, I was like, Chris Katsianis, the VP of sales, is, really, really good guy if you've worked with him. So, I shot him an email. I was like, hey, can we have a chat about this email that's gone around? Because, I just want to hear it from the horse's mouth, basically. And we had a chat, and he talked it over. So essentially, it wasn't mentioned in the email, but parking next season in all of the coloured lots is going to be $10. If you have a season ticket, you're going to get a physical pass, where you can go to any but the gold or platinum. It'll be first come, first serve. They are going to work on some ideas of how you can buy parking pass on the day, whether it's just going to be cash or it's card, or if you can buy like a partial season ticket almost. He's always keen to say, they'll work with anything, and, to his credit, he does. There was the club access. I think this is kind of the best part, honestly. The Hall of Fame Club was always exclusive. I say always, it's only been around for 18 months. Was exclusive to people with Hall of Fame club seats. It's now going to be open to all season ticket members.
Oh, nice.
On the south side, the southeast corner. Yep, the southeast. On the concourse, there's a door into the Hall of Fame Club. It's just a bar, and that's where all those little inset floor little exhibition parts are, like the ball that somebody scored. Brandy Chastain hit the penalty in '99, stuff like that.
just Brandy Chastain's goal, no big deal.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool things in there. So that'll be available. It kind of sucks for club members, but what it tells you is they weren't making money in it. Also, now the bar on the south end underneath that, the Heineken Red Star Club, that used to be open to everyone because initially it was people in the south end and it made zero money, so they opened it up. That and the Pepsi Patio, which is honestly just the name for a strip of concrete that sits outside of that bar, will be exclusive to season ticket holders.
So like under the cover, basically.
Yeah, it's just a covered concourse. If it's raining, that's great, basically. And then one thing they're going to do also to entice you to go to those bars is those match day giveaways. For everyone that went to the Seattle game, everybody used those Pepsi ponchos because, it rained like hell.
Yeah, it did.
But, all those noise clappers, the hats they gave away from Toyota with the camouflage print, all that sort of stuff, that's going to be exclusive to season ticket holders, and the idea is that's going to be given away in the South End bars. Cats did say to me, hey, one season ticket benefit people always forget is their membership services rep. Well, they're all based on the north side of the stadium, so you can say, hey, I want to come and pick this up for you. I don't want to walk to the south end. Things like that. And then another thing is they've got a couple of season ticket holder gates. They're going to expand on those. I haven't seen a whole lot about those, really.
Well, certainly access in and out of the stadium has occasionally been a problem over the last couple of years.
Yes, yeah, it definitely has. I'm not sure where they're going to add the extras, but I've seen a couple of complaints about ADA compliant entrances. Obviously, the media entrance we use is the ADA entrance, but on the other side of the stadium, there isn't a whole lot. They've done some boneheaded things, like when they had the World Cup watch party recently. They put the sign to show which way to go on the lowered curb, where if you have a wheelchair, you're going to go. So it physically stopped people getting up. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like there's a whole lot of stuff going on with season tickets, most of which are going to be the parking is going to cause some consternation from people. The idea that those clubs are going to be open to everybody who has a season ticket sounds kind of nice. I might go down there myself a few times.
Yeah, definitely. And the last thing is the pricing plan for next season comes out next week.
That's true. My season ticket rep contacted me about that as well this week, so I did know that to be the case too.
But you have until September 22nd to lock in your current price. I did ask Katz, what's the outline going to be, and he said, look, I'll be honest, it's not going to shock you. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah. So I assume, like in previous seasons, some of the premium areas go up, some of the areas that don't sell, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, the east side of the stadium where it's uncovered will probably go down a little bit.
Oh, that's good for me.
I assume. I could be wrong. It could be a freeze.
All right, well, stay tuned for perhaps more ticket controversy next week as the pricing comes out. That's a jam-packed show for you. I think Dan and I broke down almost everything that happened this week in the world of FC Dallas. One quick NPSL news under the category of support local soccer, which we're strong proponents of around here. Fourth Vaqueros have defeated the Denton Diablos in the opening round of the NPSL playoffs. That game was actually in Denton. Vaqueros won in the 8th round of penalty kicks. 8 rounds. That's incredible. So now they advance. And the other team that advanced tonight was the Midland Odessa Sockers, who have been on a roll this year, and they defeated local team Dallas City 9-1.
They will host the final too.
Yeah, that Midland Odessa team this year is stacked. They look 100% legit. Vaqueros are going to have a very difficult time playing against them. Last time they went out there, they didn't hardly take any of their team because they were all coaching. Most of the Vaqueros guys all coached youth teams. I don't know if you know that. It was a big tournament weekend, so half their team didn't travel. So those are going to be two teams that really almost have never seen each other this year, and that'll be kind of an exciting local soccer game coming up. When is that game? Saturday. This Saturday. There you go, 7:15. So there you go. Support local soccer.
And one further piece of local news, Solar SC just wrapped up a 2-0 win over Lone Star in the DA Academy under 16-17 girls final.
Yeah, the Solar Girls program is outstanding. Let's give some credit to the Solar Under 17 boys team, who knocked off FC Dallas on their way, Solar's way to winning the Under 17 bracket championship with a pretty strong performance. A good-looking team. They were right there, second place behind FC Dallas all year. One interesting thing about Solar is I've heard through the back channels that via what we're going to call the Chris Kappas rule, that FC Dallas owns the homegrown territory rights on any Solar player, that anybody that comes out of their system. I've even heard a story that Dallas has actually blocked a player going on trial to another MLS club, perhaps out of pettiness in terms of them losing Chris Kappas, but such is the rules now, and it's perhaps unfortunate if somebody didn't get an opportunity, but at the same time, if Dallas was pissed enough about Kappas, I can understand them blocking somebody else.
Well, I think actually you mentioned to me the club in question, and I remember what's his name? Okuono. He was a homegrown target in the academy, and that club actually blocked his signing. So he went into the draft, played for RSL, had a terrible attitude, and got dropped after a season. And I think he's playing locally now. Yeah, maybe it wasn't such a bad thing at the time then.
Yeah. Well, so I can't confirm anything with the blockage of a Solar players by name. It's just something I've heard has happened via the homegrown rule, which homegrown territory part of the homegrown rule, which everybody hates and everybody expects to be repealed any minute. But as of now, it's not. So theoretically, FC Dallas could sign Solar players to homegrown contracts, as bizarre as that sounds, despite the fact that the player has not played for any FC Dallas academy. So I don't understand how that. Maybe they can't sign him. Maybe they can just prevent them from signing for somebody else. It's just the craziest rule in the world.
No, in the rules it does say if they've played any DA games, if they've been in a DA system for a year within the territory. So someone who's been for Solar for a year could absolutely be signed by FC Dallas. If only Blaine Ferry was still here.
Yeah, I 100% know that FC Dallas had Blaine Ferry's rights because I asked about it specifically. But, we all know that given the current love-hate relationship between FC Dallas Academy and Solar Academy, this is not going to happen. It's a moot point, but it is important to know that their players and Dallas Texans all are part of FC Dallas's homegrown territory, and we all think it's a dumb rule, but it is the rules as they stand. So there we go.
I will say that rule it may improve those relations, because the issue was, FC Dallas would wait until a player was sort of 17 and then go in and pluck them from Texans and Solar. Instead, they can just say, "Cool, you do DA with them, and we'll pick your rights at the end of it. If you want to come with us, great."
That'd be interesting.
And take in some North Texas SC games in the meantime.
Well, I think that FC Dallas could go a long way to repairing the relationship with some of these local academies if they have a player that comes from another academy, that they give that academy some credit. Paxton didn't start with FC Dallas, right? He started with Solar. So,
all of them. Of all the 27, it's only Jesus Ferreira that's gone the whole way through.
Yeah. So, easy for me to say. It's not my club, but I think it would go a long way for FC Dallas to repair some relationships if they were to give some recognition to the clubs that these guys came from.
Oh, 100%. And those families should be part of your fan base.
Yeah, they should be. Anyway, that's you and I are not by any means youth soccer in Dallas experts. There's a long-standing problems across the board that have impacted these relationships coming from both sides. I'm sure it's not all on the Hunts, but that's definitely part of it. Anyway, that's all a discussion for another day, perhaps. All right, that's a pretty packed. When Peter's back, yeah, that's a pretty packed podcast. Hopefully, all you FC Dallas fans out there enjoyed our Peter Welton-less show. We think we covered everything there was to cover this week. Dan, once again, thanks for helping out. Hopefully we can get this thing edited up online. Nice job, my friend.
Thank you, and I look forward to the Walkabout podcast in the meantime.
Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be a Walkabout podcast, but there'll be some pictures and stuff in social media of various kinds. Anyway, that's all for this week. We'll be back next week with another podcast. Hopefully Peter will be here. Thanks again for listening, FC Dallas fans. Enjoy your week.